Hi there, and welcome to the second session of the series where you and I plan to sit down together and complete all the important parts of grammar that are going to be useful for you moving ahead. Now, before I move further, let me reiterate what or who this session is for. So, if you are writing any of these other B school entrance exams, then this is a session that is definitely relevant for you. And if you do want to revise grammar, you feel that you do need to spend that time, then absolutely yes, this is a session that is going to be relevant for you. We went ahead and worked on nouns and pronouns yesterday. Today we plan to shift towards verbs. But before I do that, if you are new here, hey, don't forget to subscribe to the channel. My name is Vikrant and I am your personal coach for all things related to English, logical reasoning, communication skills, strategy, you name it, and I have you covered. So if I do not know something, then I know somebody who can help us. So I can then, as a result, go ahead and ensure that your job continues to move. Okay. So when we talk about verbs, what is it that we go ahead and study in verbs? So when it comes to verbs, we go ahead and study, of course, tenses. That is one huge area, but that by all means not the only thing. So you have something called direct indirect speech, you have active passive voice, you have conditional sentences, you can spend some time talking about non-finite verbs. You can go ahead and look at this area that confuses a lot of people called subjunctive mood, and you remember there is something called models. So plenty of things, out of which I believe that tense basically constitutes 80% of what you need to learn in verbs from the perspective of the B school exams. So 80% of it gets covered when you go ahead and go through tenses. And when I say 80%, it's not that tenses do contribute 80% of the errors, but there are a lot of these other things that you master only after mastering tenses. So for example, if I talk about 2, 3 and 4, these are the things that we plan to pick up tomorrow. You cannot go ahead and study them, master them, work on them unless you have gone through tenses. Okay, so any questions? आयुष says सर कैट में वीआरसी इजी होकर टफ कर दिया. आयुष, मैंने तो कंसिस्टेंटली कभी भी नहीं बोला कि इजी था यार. इवन अगर आप एनालिसिस भी चेक करेंगे तो ऐसे दैट इट अपीयर्स टू बी मार्जिनली इजियर as compared to last year, and that's exactly where we are. So if you'd see, there is probably going to be a minor difference in the cutoffs, and even then I was relying more on second hand data, right? I mean, even if you write the cat, you write only one slot, right? Nobody can write all the three, so you kind of end up guessing. But I think DILR was the only one which a lot of people said easy. There, I think some more the exuberance has gone down a bit, and people have rationalized their expectations there. Okay. निखिल, हाँ, स्टूडियो मल्टीपल जगह है यार, मल्टीपल तरह के स्टूडियोज हैं यार हमारे पास. Abhinav, Indian people feel proud of their rich culture and heritage. Can we say that here people is showing single entity? In this sentence, not necessary. Not necessary. So in this sentence, you can perhaps interpret it both ways. But yeah, there are times when you use the noun people to refer to the citizens of a particular country or members of a particular group or community. In that sense, people is plural. But here, not really. I mean, although we are saying Indian people, but here we are saying all those who live in India, right? And that is why, look at the verb. It says feel. You'll never use feels here. Indian people feels. No. Okay. Tipaswamy T, what is it that you want to talk about? Good evening, Adev Rizwan. So do you guys have any question with respect to tenses, or should I go ahead and go talk? Jay says, want to thank you for increasing my score in VRC. My pleasure, man. My pleasure. 36 is amazing, huh? Really nice score. आयुष, वो सब्जेक्टिव होता है यार, इजी डिफिकल्ट सब सब्जेक्टिव है भाई. तुम मुझे DILR दे, जो तुम्हें आसान लगता है तुम वो भी दो. अच्छा, DILR में तो खैर ये नहीं बोलूंगा, बट तुम मुझे क्वांट दो जो तुम्हें आसान भी लगता है, मुझे मुश्किल लगेगा. और VARC में जो तुम्हें मुश्किल भी लग रहा होगा, मेरे को वॉक इन द पार्क लगेगा, ऐसे मतलब टहलते टहलते कर लेंगे. बस डिफिकल्टी लेवल एनीवे इज क्वाइट सब्जेक्टिव यार. हाँ, आयुष से स्नैप एनमैट देने का मूड चला गया भाई साहब. So here I'll tell you something that I use in my life. I believe that I am a professional. Now there are a lot of different definitions of a professional. Here is the one that I use the most, and that is a professional is somebody who goes out and gives his best even when he does not feel like doing it. You are a professional student, a professional aspirant. Whether you feel like writing it or not is immaterial. मतलब सोचो मेरी जिंदगी में कुछ हो गया, उसके बाद में मैं तुम्हें पढ़ाने के लिए आ रहा हूँ, मेरा मूड नहीं है, मैं कम एफर्ट डालूं, वो अच्छी बात थोड़ी है यार. हाँ, वो तो तुम्हारे साथ इनजस्टिस हो जाएगी. ठीक इसी तरह से अगर तुम ऐसा करोगे तो तुम अपने फ्यूचर सेल्फ के साथ इनजस्टिस कर दोगे. भाई यू आर अ प्रोफेशनल स्टूडेंट. जो भी हुआ लाइफ में, हाँ, तुम्हारी गर्लफ्रेंड छोड़ करके भाग गई, तुम्हारी गाय ने दूध देना बंद कर दिया, जो हो गया सो हो गया, अभी आगे का सोचने का. ओके. ऐश्वर्य, इफ क्लॉज समझ ही नहीं आता, कल समझा देंगे. कल कंडीशनल सेंटेंसेस कर रहे हैं, सो लेट्स गो अहेड एंड वर्क ऑन इट देयर. Priyanshi, in the case of NMAT, I'm a little biased towards official mocks. You know, it's an adaptive test. Frankly, no coaching institute in India has built an adaptive testing engine yet. So there is that. So prefer on those things. Jay Gupta, we have a score versus percentile calculator available on the website. You can use it. Okay. ओजस, फ्यूचर मैनेजर्स भी लाइक, आगे भी तो बोल ओजस. हाँ दर्शन, बिल्कुल वो जैट के कोर्स में पूरा ग्रामर तो करवा ही रहे हैं, लेकिन बहुत सारे बच्चे जिनको रिवाइज करना है ना, तो ये अपन रिवीजन वाली सीरीज शुरू की हुई है. सो इवन इफ यू आर समबडी हु डज वर्क विद मी इन द बैच, डू कम हियर. यू वुड एटलीस्ट गेट टू प्रैक्टिस एंड समथिंग एक्स्ट्रा, प्लस you'd be able to focus on some high frequency errors a little more. Chaliye. So for example, when I talk about the batch, you know, on good days, I actually, when I genuinely feel like doing a very thorough job, when I have time, I spend 4 hours on teaching tenses. So batch तो batch है यार. But चलो यहाँ पे अभी काम शुरू करते हैं. So when we talk about tenses, you know that there are 12 types of tenses, right? So what 12 types? So basically tense means time. हाँ, और टाइम वैसे तो दो तरह का होता है, अच्छा या बुरा. But when it comes to grammar, we say time is of 3 types. You have present, you have past, and you have future. And now each one of these 3 types of time is further divided into 4 subcategories. Which 4 subcategories? You can have simple or indefinite tense. You can have continuous. Then you have perfect, and you have perfect continuous. So 3 types of time, each one of those further divided into 4 subcategories or 4 aspects as we call it technically, and that makes it 12 categories. Okay, so what are those 12 categories? So within present, let's go ahead and review those. So the first one is simple present tense. Now you tell me, when do we use simple present tense? Come on, go ahead and tell it to me. When do we use the simple present tense? Once you share your answers, I will tell you a couple of extra things, hopefully. If you've not attended my class, then you'd look at it and be like, oh, I didn't know that. So, when do we use the simple present tense? Sugam, you can look at the previous year cutoffs. They have usually been around 240s, give or take a few marks. स्नैप इंग्लिश के लिए सेशन है, लेते रहना. बिल्कुल ले रहा हूँ, रोज ले रहा हूँ यार. अब तो मैंने बोला ना, अगले कुछ दिन अपन रोज काम करेंगे, चिंता नहीं करने का. सो गेटिंग 96. ओके Amrinder, irrespective of the score or the percentiles, you definitely need to focus on the subsequent exams. Form भरे, पैसे लगाएं, देंगे paper. Fabulous. So Aishwarya says general truths, or as we normally call them, universal truths. Vishaka says facts. Absolutely yes, facts of the present. Then Dhanraj says normal talk. ना normal talk में तो सब कुछ बोलते हैं यार. Habitual things, absolutely yes. We use it for regular or habitual actions. What else? Okay, so here are two things that you may not be aware of, and they are here. You can actually use simple present tense, that is the present indefinite tense, to talk about future and to talk about past as well. So when do you do that? For example, have a look at this sentence. So look at this sentence. This sentence is grammatically correct. It's also incidentally factually correct, which means that those of you writing the snap on the 15th, by 14th ko, I will probably drop a video message to you, but from somewhere from the venue of the wedding. अच्छी location से तुम्हें video भेजूंगा तब. So look at this. Now we are talking about an event that is going to take place next month, 2 weeks from now. Just 2 weeks from now. साला कपड़े भी नहीं बनवाए यार मैंने. My God, मैं क्या कर रहा हूँ? So now you notice this is there, and I told you this sentence is grammatically correct because it talks about a specific type of future, and that is a scheduled event where the day, date, etc. is known to us. So this kind of future can be stated using the present indefinite tense, which we also know as, of course, the simple present tense. And when I say that we can also use this to talk about past, there are two situations. The first is if you are narrating an event of the past and you want your narration to be dramatic, engaging, then you can use the simple present tense. Or if you quote somebody, then you can use this tense. For example, I can say, Shakespeare says to be or not to be, that is the question. To write the NMAT or not to write the NMAT, that is the question. So अब वो देख रहे हो, Shakespeare says, भाई Shakespeare said this 450 years ago, but because I'm quoting him here, it is okay to use says. It will also be right to use said. So it's not that said will be incorrect. So don't mark these things as wrong if you get them in the exam. And Priyanshi, when you say is getting married नहीं आएगा, किसी ने बोला got नहीं आएगा, भाई वो सब भी ठीक है, पर when you say is getting married ना, we say is going to get married, is getting married, वो थोड़ा meaning change कर देते हैं. So future दिखाने के बहुत सारे तरीके, there are a lot of different ways in which we show future. Future actually happens to have a lot of different shades, to be honest. So all of these different ways of using it, present indefinite shows one shade, present continuous uses another or shows another shade. So they're just shades. And is getting married will be, I think, a little informal. We should rather say is going to get married. That is something that we can definitely state formally. Okay. Then the next one, present continuous. So you know present continuous is used to talk about ongoing actions. This happens to be one of the most abused tenses. पता नहीं लोगों को क्या बीमारी है भाई, verb के साथ ing लगाने में मजा आता है लोगों को यार. पता नहीं क्यों मजा आता है, बट आता जरूर है. क्यों लगाते हैं लोग verb के साथ ing जब जरूरत नहीं होती तो? Why? When do we use continuous tense? To show ongoing actions. So if you are talking about an ongoing action, then yes, then go ahead, use this tense. If you're not talking about an ongoing action, why use it? Or ongoing में भी ऐसा नहीं कि random हर एक ongoing के साथ चलेगा. It has to be an ongoing action that we know is going to get over at a certain point of time in future. तब यूज करते हैं, okay? Otherwise नहीं करते हैं. Not only that, here is one additional thing. There are some verbs called non-continuous verbs. These are verbs that show actions that can never be captured in present continuous tense. For example, uh, say people who may come and say, "Oh, I am so sorry, I'm forgetting your name." Now, this sentence is grammatically incorrect, and the reason is forget is a non-continuous verb. I mean, does forget convey an action which is completely under our control? It isn't, right? So don't use such verbs as main verbs in continuous tense. Of course, you can use forget with an ing as a gerund, as a non-finite verb, as a gerund, as a participle, all that, but don't use it as a verb. Okay. Then present perfect tense. Present perfect tense always talks about the past. It never talks about the present. So basically, it talks about actions that are that have happened in the past. I will add a little more to it on our next slide. Okay. Then present perfect continuous. Now this is one tense that a lot of us end up getting wrong, and the reason is that this tense does not exist in a lot of Indian languages. Now, for example, Hindi does not have a present perfect continuous tense. I know Punjabi does not have a present perfect continuous tense. So in Hindi, in Punjabi, we only have present continuous. So what is the difference between present continuous and present perfect continuous? Who's going to tell it to me? Come on. Manas, that's okay. Here, when you use this particular sentence, the verb that you're using is keep. And frankly, you don't need on here. Keep on has a different meaning. So say, I keep forgetting your name. There in this sentence, forgetting is basically used as a gerund. It is not a verb. That use is fine. Ayush is asking, how was the difficulty? किस चीज का difficulty level, Ayush? Which difficulty level are we talking about? iQUANTA का ड्रेस पहनकर चले जाइए, वहां से क्लास ले लीजिएगा. मैं तो ले ही सकता हूँ भाई. तुम डाउट्स पूछना, मैं बताता रहूंगा. ठीक है, पढ़ाने के लिए टी शर्ट जरूरी थोड़ी है. So when do we use present perfect continuous tense? When we want to talk about an event that is going on right now, but we also add the time at which it started or the duration for which it has been going on. Remember? So I hope you do know these things. Then past, so simple past tense. One key thing that I want you to keep in mind is the difference between present perfect and simple past tense. So what is the difference between the two? Both of them talk about something that happened in the past. If the time of occurrence of that action is not mentioned, then you are supposed to use present perfect. On the other hand, if the time of occurrence is mentioned, then you are supposed to use simple past. So I will say, I have watched this movie, but I'll say I saw this movie last Saturday. I saw this movie a couple of days ago. So you notice the moment I add that time, when did I see the movie? A couple of days ago. So simple past. If you do not get an answer to the when, then make sure that you use present perfect. Okay. Ayush, excellent example. Very good. हाँ विशाखा, एब्सोल्युटली पास्ट आ जाता है किस सेंस में, या तो कब काम शुरू हुआ था या कितनी देर से चल रहा है, इस सेंस में. ओके, देन द नेक्स्ट बिट पास्ट कॉन्टिन्यूअस. बस एक ही चीज का ध्यान रखना, यू कैन यूज पास्ट कॉन्टिन्यूअस टेंस व्हेन योर सेंटेंस आल्सो मेंशंस द टाइम. सो आई कैन नॉट से समथिंग लाइक I cannot say I was having lunch. This sentence is incorrect. I also need to add when. So I can say I was having lunch at 3. I can say I was having lunch when you called. So something along these lines, okay? That moment at which that action was going on, that moment is essential, is necessary. Otherwise, we don't use past continuous tense. Then you have past perfect. So again, a lot of people get this particular tense wrong. So past perfect tense is used when your sentence talks about two completed events, where you want to suggest, where you want to tell others that, hey, out of these two events, there was this one event that happened first and the other event happened later. So the event that happened first is stated using the past perfect tense, and the event that happened later is stated using either the simple past tense or the present perfect tense, usually simple past. Okay, so this arrangement is really very important. Srimi, there is no point here. They can pick up any obscure thing. I'll try and see if I can capture some high frequency things, but frankly, थोड़ा odd सा हो जाएगा. हाँ, but कोशिश करते हैं, चलो अगर कुछ भी बता पाए तो. Absolutely. Ayush has shared a fabulous example. Do look at it. And then past perfect continuous. Just like past continuous, it's past continuous, but it tells you when the action started or the duration. And in perfect continuous tense, both present and past, a lot of people struggle with these two prepositions, okay? Since versus for. So make sure that you do master them. Since is used for a point of time, whereas for is used for the duration. Okay, so I'd say I have been studying since morning. I have been studying for 10 hours. Okay, so since morning, but for 10 hours. So that distinction, please keep that in mind. And then of course you have future tense, simple future, you know when to use it. What is the difference between will and shall? Sorry. So we use shall with I and we, and we use will with everything else. Mind you, I'm stating everything really concisely. We are basically revising. So this particular arrangement shows your regular future where you are not showing any commitment. But when you want to show commitment, you swap. So if you use will with I or we, or if you use shall with everything else, then this goes on to show commitment. This goes on to show promise kind of thing. Fair enough? So there you go. That's simple future. I will call you tomorrow. I shall call you tomorrow. Both are grammatically correct. He will burn in the fires of hell. He shall burn in the fires of hell. Both are correct. The meaning changes. When you add shall with he, it shows commitment, but that is there. ऐश्वर्या, जरूरी नहीं है कि हर एक बार सेंटेंस में बिफोर आए. जहां बिफोर आया वहां तो क्लियर कट है, पर जहां बिफोर नहीं है वहां पे वो पास्ट परफेक्ट कहां लगाया वो बताएगा कौन सी चीज पहले हुई थी. So before वाला तो थोड़ा आसान चीज हो गए. Then future continuous, again ongoing activities in future. Once again, just like past continuous, you need to add time. Future perfect talks about the fact that a particular activity will get over by or before a point of time in future. For example, we will have finished revising tenses by 6:30. उससे भी पहले कर सकते हैं. And future perfect continuous, yet frankly, this tense we meet it only in the grammar books and occasionally, rarely, but rarely in the exams. You won't find this tense in life, so I'm skipping it. Okay, so the checklist is, whenever you see a sentence and you want to be sure that the sentence is okay in terms of tense, you need to check two things. You need to check the usage and you need to check the syntax, or in other words, if I were to use a simplified language, I'll say, hey, check, is the right tense being used in this sentence? Is this sentence trying to convey an idea for which this tense is the right tense? Right? So you need to match that. That's the usage part. And the other part is syntax, which basically means, hey, is the sentence using the correct helping verb and the correct form of the main verb in this particular sentence? That's essentially it. Okay, so if the sentence is okay with respect to these two things, then as far as tenses go, The sentence is clean. There can be some other error, but not this. Okay, so chaliye, let's go ahead and now go work on our questions. So directions for the first 13 questions. No, not first 13. No, first 13. So these are the directions for the first 13 questions. Please look at the directions, and let's take a mini pause here and then ask. Bataiye, is there something that you want to ask? Is there anything that you have in your mind, something that you, some tense that maybe, bothers you more and you want to talk about it? So I can go ahead and share the deets for that. कोई टेंस जिसके बारे में आप जानना चाहते हैं? बताइए. Anything. Present perfect versus past. Anindita, it's basically the difference of time. The time is mentioned or the time is not mentioned. Give me a sentence and I can use that as an example to explain it further. Or chaliye, that'll take time. So let me give you the example. So basically, let's take up an action. I saw him. Is that correct? So if I want to see whether it is correct, I notice I saw him is simple past tense. When do we use simple past tense? For a completed action, when I know the time of that action. But here, if I ask the question when, am I getting an answer? No, I'm not getting an answer, which means that this sentence is grammatically incorrect. It should have been I've seen him. On the other hand, if you add a bit of time here, right? If you add something like I saw him yesterday, I saw him last month, some such thing, then yes, then we can say that this is grammatically correct. So you get the drift? Does that work? चलिए तो क्वेश्चन करते हैं, आ जाइए. Let's go ahead and start. Let's dive into our questions. So here is your question number 1 and the clock is ticking. Once the timer is over, we'll discuss. Until then, make sure that you flood the chat with your answer. Right or wrong does not matter, क्योंकि अपने सेशन में कोई नेगेटिव मार्किंग नहीं है. दिव्या, वो क्लास में करते हैं ऐसा. We do that in our sessions, but this is more of a revision. That will be too basic for a revision, right? If you happen to have a concern, do let me know. I'll love to then in that case take care of it. Oops. Okay. So my friend Jack has left for Germany a day before yesterday. So my friend Jack left for Germany. When did he leave for Germany? A day before yesterday. So I know the time. So when the time of an action that happened in the past is available, when the time of occurrence is available, the tense that we are supposed to use is simple past tense. But this sentence uses the present perfect tense. That's wrong. So this has to go, and that is why the correct answer is B. So my friend Jack left for Germany a day before yesterday. अब डे बिफोर येस्टरडे में तो कुछ गलती है नहीं. आप अगर टाइम हटा देंगे तो भी ये सेंटेंस सही हो जाएगा, बट वी आर स्पॉटिंग एरर्स. We are trying to identify errors. There is nothing wrong with C. And as long as C is present, you cannot use has left, and that is what is wrong here. Okay? Not had, Saurabh, that will make it past perfect. When do we use past perfect? When there are two completed actions. Does this sentence talk about two actions? No, it does not. So we will not use past perfect. Okay, next. Okay, Vishakha, let's pick it up after this question. Okay, so the answer here is C. The correction is it should be until your father comes to pick you up. And now the reason. This particular part is called a time clause. Okay. Now, whenever we use a time clause in future tense, okay, whenever you use a time clause in future tense, in a sentence that is talking about the future, just keep it simple, then the time clause is always stated using the simple present tense. Here is an example. So I will call you once I get rid of the body. Yeah, when, let's just make it easy on you. When I get rid of the body. So you realize this is very clearly a time clause, and we are talking about future. So look at the tense. I, verbs first form, that's simple present tense. Okay, so do keep in mind it's a commonly asked error and a lot of people fail to identify it. In case you need more details, now you know I throw in a lot of jargon. I did that yesterday. The reason was to ensure that later on, if you want to read up on that area, you can. So you can just Google time clauses or clauses and then time clauses, and you can fill in the gap in your knowledge in case this bothers you. Okay, now to take up Vishaka's question, when do we use has, have, and had? Okay, so when you use has, have, and had, you can use them as a helping verb. When you use them as a helping verb, has and have are used in present perfect tense, and had is used in past perfect tense as helping verbs. Has is used with singular subjects except for I, and have is used with I along with plural subjects. There you go. But then this verb can also be used as a main verb. It can be used to show at times possession, right? If I say I have a pen, he has a pen, then that's okay. As a main verb, it is used as it is used. So as a main verb, the second and third form of it will be had and had respectively. Okay. Third question. All right, so the correct answer here is A. It should be my father thinks. And the reason is, in its primary meaning, think is a non-continuous verb. You know, we constantly keep on thinking. वो चलता ही रहता है, right? So वो जो automatically जो thoughts आती हैं, उसके उस sense में you don't use it as a continuous verb. Okay. Thinking can also has think this verb also has this other meaning, considering. I am thinking of going to either Ladakh or Goa, so I'm considering. In that sense, you can use it as a main verb, but normally no. Okay. So that's third. Here is fourth. ना मुस्कान, वेदर नहीं यूज कर सकते, वो डायरेक्ट इनडायरेक्ट स्पीच वाला सिचुएशन नहीं था. Had it been a direct indirect kind of situation, you could have weather otherwise used in a different sense. वो weather नहीं, वो खुद के लिए ऑप्शंस में कर सकते हैं आप. Priyanshi, that I should part of that sentence was absolutely correct. There are two different clauses, okay? So whenever you evaluate sentences with multiple clauses, check every clause independently and then see. Okay, the answer here is C. Instead of contains, it should be contained. Now, this has also to do with direct and indirect speech slash change of narration. So if you go through those principles, I think you'd be able to understand it better. But there was a clue here. Notice this, had lost. Past perfect. So think of it in terms of direct, indirect speech and it'll make sense. Okay. So instead of contains, it should be contained. Socho direct industry, the detective asked Rohit, hey, does the pouch you have lost contain rare gems? So a sentence which is in simple present tense, when you change it into indirect speech, it gets into simple past. So you take every verb back by a step. So kal karenge kya? We'll look at direct indirect speech tomorrow. So hopefully we'll be able to discuss these things. Here is question number 5 for you. Okay, so when we look at this particular question, we need to focus on the while. When do we use while? While talks about two events happening together. So he was watching TV when he fell asleep, right? So there was that action that was going on. So instead of while I watched TV, therefore it should be while I was watching TV. So it is the longer action which got interrupted by the other, not even interrupted, where the other event happened parallelly. Okay. Question number 6. All right. So in question number 6, you notice that we are talking about projects that the government is pursuing these days. So these are projects that are happening these days. These are not projects that government goes ahead and takes up all the time. So the these days tells you that these are projects that are being taken up now. They're not the projects that are taken up throughout or always. And therefore, the projects that the government is taking up. Takes up is simple present tense, that shows regular or habitual action, but it is not a regular or habitual action because of the presence of these days. And that is why our answer to this question must be option A. So there can be two possibilities. Okay, so let's say there is a neighbor of mine and I'm in the habit of ringing his doorbell and then running away. I've been doing that since time immemorial. So I'd say, yeah, I prank my neighbor and run. Regular habitual action. But if it is something that I've taken up only for the last couple of days and I intend to stop, then I say, I am pranking my neighbor nowadays. I ring his doorbell and run away. I am pranking because not a regular or habitual action. Okay. Divya, has taken will be what, past? And with that, you cannot use these days. So had these days not been there, then yeah, you could have used has taken up, but not when you have these days available. Okay, question number 7 on your screen. The timer is ticking. Okay, I think this one is easy. The company was considering. I mean, past continuous tense. You need an ing form of the verb and not the ed form of the verb. So obviously wrong. Okay, question number 8. ड्रीम क्रू ing लगाना भूल गए आप. Okay, so irrespective of what some of us may think, I'm doing it just to keep you on your toes. The answer is D. There is nothing wrong with this sentence. So if I ask you, just think, if I ask you, what was the main reason for the firm to survive? You'll say the cutting down on costs. So this entire part is the subject of the sentence. Okay, and it is a phrase. So there are times when a phrase acts as a subject of a sentence. Such phrases are called noun phrases. Let me write it fully. So it's a noun phrase. When a phrase acts as a subject or an object, you call it a noun phrase. So there is a noun phrase acting as a subject, which is absolutely okay. So that was the main reason for the firm to survive even during the economically challenging times. Everything else is absolutely spot on. Nothing wrong with it. Okay. So Nana, economically challenging times, times that are difficult are challenging times. Challenged time won't even make sense. So I know that ing form of the verb and the ed form of the verb, both of them can be used as an adjective, but both of them lead to different meanings. Okay. In this case, yes. Srimi, in this case, absolutely yes. It can refer to a specific action taken by the firm. Okay, 9th. Cutting down off cost. We don't use off in this particular phrase. I don't recall any sentence where we see that, Divya. Actually, answer for the 9th. Yes, instead of went, go. And I think some of you know why I have this question here. So in the past indefinite / simple past tense, the helping verb that we use is did. Now, whenever your sentence has did, you are supposed to use the first form of the verb and not the second form of the verb. A lot of people around me make this mistake where they'll use did, but they'll continue to use the second form of the verb, which obviously is incorrect. Okay, so next question. Yes, Ojas, wrong form of the verb indeed. So, this particular sentence, the error is in part C. 10 years shows duration. We do not use since with duration. That's wrong. The correct preposition will be for. So, that's since versus for thing. Huh? Next question. So, what's your answer now? The answer should be option C. It will be they will have. Huh? Notice we are talking about next year. And when you say next year, we are obviously talking about future. And considering that we are talking about future, uh, you are supposed to use the future tense, right? So you get it there. Fair enough? Okay, let's move over to the next one now. Anindita, we do use would in conversational English in place of will, but that is not considered correct. You can use would as a model auxiliary verb. Let's talk about it after question number 12. Let's just dig deeper then. Mragank, it is not necessary for you to use then with an if clause, but you can if you want to. Abbe, now tell me something. These landlords were paid for electricity or these landlords were paying for electricity? They were paid for electricity. They were being given money by the government to use electricity. No, they who were until now paying for electricity at subsidized rates will soon have to pay the government the market rate, the non subsidized rate. They were not paid for electricity, they were paying for it. So therefore the correct answer is B. Okay, just to carry what Anindita asked a little while ago, will versus would. Okay, so first up, would is the past form of will and shall. The past form of shall is also would and not should. Okay, so that's one use. The second use of would is it's a polite way of offering choices. What would you like to have? Tea or coffee? Or maybe something even stronger. So that's, and then would is also used in polite requests. So if you ask someone out, you'd say, would you go out for a cup of coffee with me? Would you go out on a date with me? Those kind of situations. And then, of course, would can also be used in a couple of more places. When we talk about future from a past perspective, you use would there. Then where else do we use would? Would is used in conditional sentences, some special type of conditional sentences. Would is also used in some sentences where you're guessing, but I think the three that I've written here along with conditional sentences are the dominant ways of using it. Now, a lot of people use would in place of will in conversational English. It is considered casual. It is grammatically, in written English, you'd not really consider it acceptable. Dhanraj, that's again, we're talking about conditional sentences, right? So it's definitely yes. Okay. Next question. Ojas, that's a variation of conditional sentence. Basically a subjunctive mood kind of sentence. So I know. Hypothetical sentences. You use them there. So particular variant of conditional sentences deals with such situations too. All right. So for 13th, the correct answer is A. It should be begun. Began is the second form, but whenever we use have, that's present perfect tense. Whenever you use have as a helping verb, the main verb is always in the third form. So A it is. And here are the directions for the next 5 questions. So far there was a sentence that was divided into 3 parts. Fourth was no error. This time around, you won't have an option called no error, which means that there is definitely something wrong with your sentence. You just need to go ahead and identify what. So here is your question number 14 and the clock is ticking. All right, so in this particular case, you notice your sentence uses since the 14th century. This since basically tells you that it should be a sentence written using perfect continuous tense. Whereas in this particular case, it does not. So it should be with which the town has been connected since the 14th century. And that is why we will mark C as our error. Okay, so it is the center of the paper making industry with which the town is connected. So here which refers to paper making or paper making industry. Okay, so some of us have also asked about A. So any specific thing that you thought was wrong in A? If you share that, then I can probably give you more details. Until then, the rest of us can go ahead and look at the 15th question. Oh, okay. Got you. Okay, so you notice in this sentence we are talking about 2 actions. They walked, they came. What do you think? In this particular situation, is there an action that must have happened before the other action? What's your guess? Is there, in this particular sentence, can we be sure of the fact that one of these actions must have happened before the other one? Yeah, they must have walked before they came to the ad. to the edge. So if one action happened before the other, then that action should be stated using the past perfect tense. So it should be, they had walked a mile or two towards home. Remember, past perfect tense talks about two completed actions. So if you got this wrong, then you know which part of grammar you are supposed to go and revise. Fair enough. Okay, ravine is basically a deep, narrow valley, uh, which happens to have some rather steep sides. Okay. Then next one. All right. So in this particular case, the answer should be C. Oh, I forgot to change this to 1, 2, 3, 4. Instead of that, it should be A, B, C, D. Now, why? You can use present continuous to talk about a gradual change. So instead of gained, you can use gaining. Or if you don't want that, you can also use has gained. So you either say is gaining or you say has gained. Is gained will not really be correct. So that is why part C, or 3 in this case, should be our answer. So I hope you get the drift there. So with that, let me take you over to your next question. Here it is. So very clearly saying next week, this sets you off for future. So he's going to cycle from Paris to Amsterdam, and by the time he gets there, he will cycle non-stop for over 24 hours. No, he will have cycled non-stop. So this is one of those examples where you needed to use the future perfect tense. Let me give you another one. So let's say let's say that I picked up a book today and I'm reading it now. So I can say that I will have finished this book by, or I can also use before Friday. So you notice will plus have plus verb third form. That's the structure that we should have used here because it has that point of time by the time he gets there. So by then, this task, cycling non-stop for over 24 hours, over 20 hours, that will have taken place. Or if you don't want to say will have cycled, if he since he may continue to do that, you can also say will have been cycling. Even that will be all right. Okay. Anindita, it's okay. You'd make this mistake maybe some 2-3 times and then you'll get a hang of it. It's all right. So, but the answer here should be D. So with that, let's now move over to the next question. And here is the next one on your screen. Mrigank, if the action will be over, use future perfect. If the action will still be going on, use future perfect continuous. Okay. So this sentence on the other hand is, I hope, rather straightforward. The answer is A. It should be I have known Raj. So the moment you have that since for, perfect or perfect continuous. In this case, you could not have used perfect continuous because know is a non-continuous verb. We don't say I have been knowing him. That's incorrect. So the only possibility is present perfect. So have known, and therefore the answer is A. And with that, here are the directions to the next set of questions. So in these sentences, you'll get a sentence with a blank. You're supposed to choose the most appropriate option for that blank. So, in these exams, we do get fill in the blank questions, and some of those fill in the blank questions are actually based on grammar. So here is, अरे why did I, ये question का number क्यों ठीक नहीं है भाई? रुको, ऐसा कैसे हो रहा है? What is happening? रुक जाओ. अब मैंने इसे ठीक कर दिया है और मैंने टाइमर भी ऐड नहीं किया है उस स्लाइड में, सो मैं साथ साथ लगे हाथ वो भी कर देता हूँ. All right, so here we go. The next question for you. What's your take? So the correct answer for question number 19 is option C, and since everybody has managed to get this right, we can move over to question number 20. Anindita, I'd be very eager to see your answer for 20th. Vamsi, bata. Vamsi, new is simple past. Known is going to be used in present perfect. So all that you need to check is, are we talking about a completed action? Do we know the time at which the action occurred in the past? If yes, then use knew. So I knew it as a child, but I have forgotten it now. Or if you have a since or a for, then you know that you're going to use either perfect continuous or present perfect. But no cannot be used in ing as a main verb, so it'll always be present perfect, so you'd use known. Okay, so this question, there is a very specific reason why I have it here. The correct answer for 20th is A. Now first up, we are not using will here. You're not using will because you notice he was. We are talking about past. So options with will are ruled out. Now between A and B, why are we choosing A and not B? You notice would is your helping verb. Now, when do we use the helping verb before the subject? We use it when we are creating a question. So you say, are you crazy? That's a question, but you are crazy. That's a statement. Now here, look at the terminal punctuation. It is a full stop slash period. It is not a question, dude. Had it been a question, then would come before she. But because it is not a question, it is a statement, you will keep the helping verb at its appropriate place after the subject. Okay. Dhanraj, you are absolutely spot on, but here you cannot use a question mark because it is not a question. It is actually a statement. If you just start here, if you omit this part, yeah, then it is going to be a question. But as long as it is here, yeah, I fail to understand why he does not listen to me. So I fail to understand some fact. I'm telling you that I fail to understand some fact. What is that fact? Why he does not listen to me. Huh. I texted her 30 times a day. I replied to every message of her within 30 seconds. I was also adequately possessive. Yet, I fail to understand why she left me. Why she has left me. Not why has she left me. ऐसे थोड़ी चलेगा. ओए अभिनव, तू सवालों को दो पार्ट में ब्रेक करेगा तो मैसेज मिस कर जाएगा. ओके, सो हियर इज द नेक्स्ट क्वेश्चन. नो टाइमर हियर, कुड नॉट फाइंड द स्पेस. सो द सेम आइडिया इज कैप्चर्ड यूजिंग 4 different sentences. One of these is grammatically correct and the rest of them are grammatically incorrect. Please go ahead and choose the grammatically correct sentence and mark that as your answer. Oh, Abhinav, in that case, the difference is just that of not. So when you say, why would I do this? You fail to see any reason compelling enough for you to engage in that action. Why would I not do it? Shows that you fail to see any reason that stops you from not engaging in this action. So that's just the difference of not here, nothing else. So 21st, what's your take? Go ahead. Once I have a few answers, we can go ahead and look at it. So you notice B and C, the difference is will and would, and we are talking about future, right? So since we are talking about future, why will you use would? Use will, no? Let me check if Anindita has gotten this right or wrong. Damn, I should have waited for her answer. So if you're confused between B and C, it's going to be B. It can't be C because it uses would instead of will. Moreover, look at this part of C as well. You will be still studying or you would still be studying. Where does still go? Where does still go? Write a few sentences, use still in them, and then you realize where it goes. Okay? So that's about today. So we're done with tenses. Tomorrow we'll pick up narration, voice, and conditional sentences. And here is something that I wanted to leave you with. So no matter what happens, please make sure that you continue to act, because that action is going to determine how your future is going to be shaped. So that's it from me today. I'll see you once again tomorrow at 5. Until then, keep working hard and do let me know if you need more help. Take care. Oh, and don't forget to like the video. Yeah.